Well, Carlson Rezidor is one of the many international and South African hotel groups that is rapidly growing its African portfolio, that in light of the rapid economic growth on the continent. We've got the president and CEO of the Rezidor Hotel Group, Wolfgang Neumann, joining us from our studios in Gabon. So for more on their strategy, they're also building a hotel specifically in Libreville. But Wolfgang, let's talk more specifically about Africa right now, because you label yourself as a first mover on the continent, and certainly if you travel across the continent, you see many international hotel groups, you know, the likes of Hilton come to mind, but certainly across the board we do see names competing with the likes of yourself. So why do you see yourself as a step ahead of the rest?
Well, Africa is a growth continent for us. We very much believe in Africa. We are here since 1999 and we have 50 hotels in operation and in development. And the reason why we are seen as the leading international hotel company is because we have the biggest pipeline of upcoming hotels in Africa, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, where we have more than 27 hotels in operation and development under our two core brands, Radisson Blu and Park Inn by Radisson.
And certainly just down the road we have two Radissons, that from of course the CNBC studios here in Sandton. So looking at the operations that you have in West Africa right now, tell us about the growth that you see specifically in that part of the world, where we know Nigeria is certainly making its mark in Africa and has global ambitions. But tell us about West Africa and what it means to the hotel group.
Yeah, you're mentioning Nigeria, and that's one of the countries as an example, with over 140 million inhabitants and the natural resources that it has. It's enormous potential there. We have 6 hotel projects alone going on in Nigeria. But it's not only Nigeria, it's the neighboring countries like Sierra Leone, or indeed here also as in Gabon, where we are converting a very exciting project of a traditional hotel into a Radisson Blu and Park Inn. So the momentum in Central Africa and in Sub-Saharan Africa is enormous, as there's not enough international supply of hotels present. And with the leading brand being on the continent, Radisson Blu, which is also the biggest upscale brand in Europe, we see enormous potential.
You've got 27 hotels that you're building right now across the African continent. Is your strategy right now to actually acquire land and build from scratch, or is it more of a case of buying into existing hotels and renovating and rebranding?
Carlson Rezidor is a management company. We do not invest, we don't own the real estate. Our expertise is in the management and in the providing of the infrastructure, the brands, and the reservation and distribution system. We work with partners, as we do here in Libreville, with strong partners who invest in the properties, and we bring the branding and the management expertise.
So when it comes to getting access to that new hotel space, I mean, what is your experience right now in Africa? How easy is it? And what's the approach when it comes to property companies that are, of course, providing the land or the building for you to be able to come in and operate?
Well, we see there's a lot of momentum. In Africa is now really discovered more and more. And we see enormous interest by local partners and investment companies to seek out international companies such as Carlson Rezidor Hotel Group, who really have the expertise and the knowledge in the market to operate in an emerging market. And by our experience, it is quite different to successfully open hotels in emerging countries such as Sub-Saharan Africa than in a more stabilized European countries. And the growth momentum is certainly slowing in Europe, and the emerging markets is really where the big potential is, and this is now more and more recognized and seen by all parties involved.
So how is Africa positioned within your emerging market portfolio of new hotels and growth projects right now, when it comes to the number of new hotels you're adding, and also the contribution that it will make ultimately to the group?
In Africa itself, we have 50 projects, 50 hotels, half of them in operation. Carlson Rezidor has 330 hotels with 100 hotels in the pipeline. So we are very much focused on Africa. And as Africa is further developing, with the further establishment of infrastructures and with the growth and the increasing interest in Africa as a tourist destination only, we see that our potential for the African continent is certainly to double that portfolio within the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. From a international standards perspective, one of the aspects that international guests would look at is the food, and ultimately look at that relative to what they can get at hotels in Europe, in America. So tell us about the offering right now and how you adhere to international standards and quality, and some of the challenges when it comes to Africa and provision of those services.
Yeah, I think food and beverage, the restoration in a hotel is very important. Guests are looking for an experience. Guests are looking on one end for an international brand where they know what they're going to experience. On the other hand, they also want to have a flavor of the local environment, of the local cultures. And I think in Africa in particular, we always integrate the two components, the international and the local. So when it comes to the restaurants and the food and beverage experience, it's important that on one end you have an international offering, but at the same time also add the local flavor and the local dimensions. And that is particularly important in the restaurants.